This is Noise from the Cranium. My name is Doug, and in this episode, I'm going to look at theft in music. I was reading an article recently about one of my favorite classic rock songs, Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. I was astounded to find out that the piano coda, which brings the epic masterpiece to a wonderful close, was added 3 weeks after the original recording sessions and was actually stolen from another songwriter. The article also indicated that the opening guitar riff itself was taken from a melody line in an Albert King song. Talk about spoiling your appreciation for a song. I still love the song, but it feels somehow tainted now to know these additional details. I'll look at the specifics of these claims in a moment. Reading that article got me to thinking about originality versus plagiarism. Through the ages, artists have borrowed from other artists to further their craft. There's a popular quote in the art world that is attributed to Picasso that says, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." John Lennon adapted this for his own use, saying amateurs borrow, professionals steal. Simply put, artists have been borrowing from other artists for years, and by following this creed, an artist can learn from other creators and integrate what is learned into the artist's own vision, creating a unique style of their own without reinventing the wheel. When it comes to the music business, and remember, it is a business, the protection of musical works can often lead to litigation or out-of-court settlements. The copyright holder keenly wants to protect their source of revenue. Many lawsuits have resulted in payouts, royalty streams being shifted, and songwriting credits being changed to include the artist who is taken advantage of. Even so, it is still a controversial topic. Is it inspiration or imitation? Is it stealing or is it an education? If nothing else, it is food for thought. Rather than including a complete laundry list of offenders, I decided to look at a few instances that occurred over the years that I thought were interesting. First, let's look at the band that was one of the most, if not the most, influential bands in leading popular music to where it is today, the Beatles. Funny enough, they were not immune to the idea of copying their heroes and either consciously or subconsciously using parts of songs in their own work. They didn't always get called out at the time, but in the computer age, nobody is safe. The Beatles released the song Revolution as a single in 1968. The song included this opening riff. That's actually not the Beatles, but it sure sounds like it. It's Pee Wee Crayton, who released a song called Do Unto Others in 1954. Although Revolution is credited to Lennon and McCartney, Lennon claimed to have written it. To me, it would appear that he may have borrowed the opening riff from American blues artist Crayton's song. So is that homage or ripoff? Crayton never sued, but that may have more to do with the legal complexities involved in trying to protect riffs and basic chord progressions under copyright law. In a nutshell, it's not an easy task. Another American blues player, Bobby Parker, had a minor hit in 1961 with the song Watch Your Step. This song got a lot of mileage. Not only did the Beatles play it live in the early 60s, they took the opening guitar riff and turned it into their own song, I Feel Fine. In this case, they were inspired by the spirit of the song and wrote their own riff that, although based on the song, also brings something new to it. Lennon has been quoted as saying that Watch Your Step was one of his favorite songs. It must have been, as he later used the same song once again, this time as inspiration for Day Tripper. In both of these cases, there is a subtle influence and a slight difference between the original riff and the resulting ones. The Beatles' take on the original song is in the spirit of inspiration. Led Zeppelin, who also used this song as a template, didn't bother with subtleties. They just took the entire piece and hit you over the head with it, renaming it Moby Dick. To remind you, here's how the original Bobby Parker song goes. Now here's Led Zeppelin's Moby Dick. The song is not credited to Parker, but rather to the Zeppelin musicians themselves. Although Jimmy Page was an innovator in many ways, he was also one of the most notorious song thieves in rock history. There were many times that he took the concept of inspiration more than a few steps too far, crossing the line from inspiration to theft, and there were many times his practices landed him in court. An online search will uncover the mountain of borrowed ideas. One of their most egregious song thefts was this one.
for so long, it's not true.
Dazed and Confused from the first Led Zeppelin album is a stone-cold classic. The song, credited to Jimmy Page, was recorded in October of 1968 and released in 1969. Page had been fooling around with an arrangement for this song for a while, and had actually performed it earlier in 1968 when he was with the Yardbirds, but with slightly different lyrics and a different arrangement than the version that ended up on the first Zeppelin record.
I'm dazed and confused. Is it stay, is it go? Give me a clue, 'cause I just want to know. Give me a clue as to where I am at. Feel like a mouse and you act like a cat.
Here's where it gets interesting. When the Yardbirds were performing in New York in August of 1967, one of their opening acts was a singer-songwriter named Jake Holmes, who played a song during the set that went like this.
And confused. Is it stay, is it go? Am I being choosed? Well, I'd just like to know. Give me a clue as to where I am at. I feel like a mouse and you act like a cat.
The song was called Dazed and Confused. It was written by Jake Holmes and recorded on his album, The Above Ground Sound of Jake Holmes. The album was recorded in the spring of 1967 and released a couple of months later, in July. Yardbirds drummer Jim McCarty, and possibly Jimmy Page, watched Holmes open for them from the side of the stage. McCarty, captivated by Holmes' song Dazed and Confused, went out the next day and bought the album. He played the song for Page and the band. They loved it and began working up an arrangement using the same bass riff and most of the lyrics. Based on this first-hand account, I find it unbelievable and shocking that Page would not only claim to have written the song, but to maintain his innocence for so long. He had a lot of nerve. As late as 1990, he was asked point blank if Jake Holmes wrote the song. He does his best to evade the question and then indicates that he had never heard Jake Holmes, which is truly laughable. Aside from the fact that the Holmes album was released months before the first Yardbirds performance of the song, a quick comparison will show that the lyrics on the Yardbirds version are almost identical to the Holmes version. Holmes finally sued in 2010, and the song is now credited as inspired by Jake Holmes. Yeesh. Getting back to the song Layla, here are a couple of interesting notes relating to the backstory of how it was recorded. Listen to the opening line of As the Years Go Passing By, where blues artist Albert King sings There's Nothing I Can Do, followed by the quick piano riff.
There's nothing I can do.
Guitarist Duane Allman, who had been invited to the Derek and the Dominoes recording sessions by Eric Clapton, combined King's 7-note melody with the speed and feel of that piano riff. Then Allman and Clapton layered a number of guitars on it, creating the classic intro to Layla. Although the notes are the same, you'd be hard-pressed to consider it anything but inspiration, allowing an artist to create something better. In my mind, not a direct rip-off. However, here's the rip-off part of the story. The fabulous coda to Layla, which sums up the song and brings it to its elegiac conclusion, goes like this. Oh, wait a minute, that's not Layla. That's actually a song written by Rita Coolidge called Time. Here's the coda to Layla. And here's the story. Derek and the Dominoes drummer Jim Gordon got a writing credit for the coda to Layla. At the time, Gordon's girlfriend was songwriter Rita Coolidge, who would soon become a recording star in her own right. Coolidge recounts the story of how this coda came about in her autobiography. Gordon and Coolidge often worked on songs together, and it was at one of their songwriting sessions that Gordon, who was also a decent pianist, showed Coolidge an 8-note chord progression on the piano. Coolidge was inspired and wrote a counter-melody and lyrics, calling it Time, Don't Let the World Get in the Way. Gordon and Coolidge recorded a demo on cassette. When in London, they played the song for Clapton, then left him the cassette, hoping he might cover the song. Instead, the lyrics were stripped from the song, and the piano chords and Coolidge's counter-melody became the coda for Layla. The coda was solely attributed to Jim Gordon, who didn't bother to advise Clapton that Coolidge actually wrote the bulk of it. Not having the money to fight the theft, nor having any clout in a male-dominated industry, she was convinced to not pursue a lawsuit against one of the heavies of the music biz, Robert Stigwood. At the time, Layla was simply another rock song on a relatively unsuccessful album by a band that broke up soon after, so she let it go. It was only years later that it became the revered rock classic that it is. Coolidge understandably has mixed feelings about being left off the writing credits, and she's indicated that it'll haunt her for the rest of her life. She's also indicated that she wasn't so much worried about the money, but absolutely deserved a songwriting credit for creating this wonderful melancholic ending to this now classic rock staple. This has been Noise from the Cranium. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.